Hey everybody, it's Retro DM Ray again. Hey, I'm back with you another time very quickly with another video on the progress from David Zeb Cook on the revision of the first edition Advanced D&D into second edition AD&D. This magazine is Dragon Magazine number 139. The article is from the Game Wizards section. This is from November of 1988. And Zeb is again telling us about the progress in relation to the second edition AD&D game, the revision of first edition. So I hope you're liking these videos. Please give a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. I would really appreciate that. Trying to continue to push to get that subscriber count up. I've had a lot of great comments lately. Thank you guys for all of that. I really appreciate that. A lot of good discussion. And so here we are back again today to read more about the way second edition came about. This article from the Game Wizards is entitled Back from Beyond, Progress on the Second Edition AD&D Game. He says, I am not a rules lawyer. I never want to be a rules lawyer. You know the type. The person who insists that every situation that can ever come up in your game be followed exactly by the rules. Who won't let your character try something just because it's not in the rules, and therefore must not be allowed. Who follows every rule literally as it is written, no matter what the result. Who argues endlessly about a minor point until fellow players either give in or bop him over the head a few times. I do that every once in a while. In short, a rules lawyer. Fortunately, rules lawyers, perhaps we should scientifically name them Rulius Magisterius, don't simply spring to life, newly endowed with their hair-splitting senses, though some arcane or through some arcane genetic code. No, we can safely say they are products of their environment. Perhaps weaned on games by fellow gamers, they develop a desire to play games correctly, never interpreting the rules differently from session to session. This leads them to discover so-called quote-unquote fatal flaws in design, gaps, contradictions, unanswered areas in a game that the designer never thought worth detailing. From there, it's only a small leap to extrapolating from the rules to fill all those gaps neat and tidy. So what's all this ranting got to do with the second edition AD&D game? Well, in a word, playtesting. Now, before all the playtesters get me wrong and proceed to line up and kill me, though they still have to wait their turn until the defenders of the Cavalier and Barbarian classes are done, let me say in great big letters, I like my playtesters. I'm very thankful to have them. Without their efforts, more than a few egregious errors and ideas would have slipped through the cracks of the second edition process. Yet wading through the mountains of 3x5 cards showing their comments is like spending the evening with a distant aunt and uncle. You know, the ones who want to like you, but don't really know you, and would never let their son dress that way even if they don't want to be rude and say it, but sometimes do anyway. After several hours, you come out of it feeling like you've strengthened your moral fiber. After several months of playtesting comments, we'll come out with a strengthened second edition and a small case of insanity. Do I think the playtesters are rules lawyers? Certainly not. Well, perhaps some are, but not all. I'm sure that they create and play entertaining, lively, and exciting adventures, but that's not what playtesting is all about. Playtesting is the game equivalent of passing the bar exam. If you make it, you're in. If you fail, it's back to the books. And one of the things taught in law school is that it's the argument that counts, not whether you're right or wrong. The AD&D game's second edition design draft is, in some ways, my test to pass the gaming bar exam. As you may have guessed it, it hasn't been easy. So what has been going on to reduce me to a state of raving madness? A massive playtesting campaign, that's what. In the months that have passed since anyone last reported to you on the progress of the second edition project, quite a bit has happened. I wrapped up most, but not all, of the first design draft in January, February of this year. It's been so long I can't remember. I actually got a break from this week and designed some wildly different things, the Bullwinkle and Rocky role-playing party game, and Commando, a top-secret SI game supplement, but even while I was sleeping, work was being done on the second edition project. Most of that work was done by John Pickens. John's filled several roles on the project. He handles a lot of the research that needs to be done. Well, yes, there is research. Coordinated the playtesting groups and acts as a staunch defender of the conservative view of the AD&D game. Now, as you may guess from previous columns, I've always treated the AD&D game rules as something less than rigid, sacrosanct, and untouchable. It's in my nature as a designer. Given complete freedom, I would change a lot of things about the second edition game. John, in my opinion, is at the other extreme. He claims to actually play AD&D games using all the rules exactly as they're written. Consequently, he is my perfect foil, or better yet, my counterbalance. Every time I go too far to the let's make this change because it's great, i.e. my idea, extreme, John counters with let's not change it if it isn't broken, creed. He continually brings me back to consider what this game is all about and why people play it. This doesn't mean that he's always right, or that I'm always forgetting why people like AD&D games, but he is a useful balance to make sure that all my viewpoints in the second edition project are fairly heard. As mentioned above, John ran the playtesting of the second edition rules. This doesn't mean he was out there running playtesting games himself. John worked hard, but not that hard. But he established and monitored our playtesting groups. These groups had players just like you, RPGA network members who volunteered to take part in our work. All told, John worked with about 20 to 30 groups. Now, I don't know exact numbers, but if each group had an average of 6 players, that means about 100 to 200 players actually did the playtesting. Furthermore, they did the playtesting for 8 months or more. On top of that, we have 10 years of comments, suggestions, criticisms, letters, Dragon Magazine articles, and 2 Gen Con game fairs, and several regional conventions that solicited your views. Thus, you have the most thoroughly playtested and developed game done yet by TSR Incorporated. I won't be so rash as to claim that it's the most thoroughly playtested and designed game in the industry, but I think there are few games out there that have received as much attention. From all these playtesting groups, John has been collecting criticisms, comments, and loopholes. Each one, no matter how trivial or small, is noted on a 3x5 card and sorted according to subject. John has collected thousands of these cards. From some of the playtesters, he got longer comments, letters, reports, and even small books. These 2 he boiled down to 3x5 cards. Our playtesting has now reached an end. We're still some months away from releasing the new books, but there are still several stages left to go. That's where the playtesters, John's 3x5 cards, and my ranting all come together in a big crash. We didn't do this playtesting just to look important, and John didn't note each comment on a card just to pass the time. Each card and comment has to be evaluated, considered, and when necessary, incorporated into the manuscripts to get things and changes and improvements into the second edition. As a designer and developer, this last part is what I've been doing. At this year's Gen Con Games Fair, an unknown playtester complained to my boss that all the playtesting of the second edition was being ignored. I don't know what this person's reasoning was because I wasn't there, and I'm glad I wasn't there. If I had been, the convention might have had its first homicide. By that time, I had already spent an entire month going through playtesting comments, inputting changes, and listening to what our players were saying. Since then, I've spent another 2 months doing the same thing. Don't let anyone kid you, the playtesters have been heard, and it has made a difference. Still, 3 months of going through 3x5 cards may not seem like enough to make a person crazy. But remember, as I said earlier, playtesting does something to people. The playtesters are no longer just looking at a game to see if they like it. They have an important responsibility to find all the little things that might be wrong, noting what rules work and what rules don't, and to tell us. If they didn't do these things, we wouldn't be good playtesters. Or they wouldn't be good playtesters. Fortunately, they are good playtesters. They are incredibly critical, picky, and blunt, which is just what they should be, but they are awfully hard on a poor designer's ego. Just what have our playtesters accomplished? They noted en masse the error that caused Magic users who made their saving throws to still blow their spells with graphic descriptions of what this could do to the game. They pointed out the problems with trying to change the monetary system to a more medieval economy. They took apart and reassembled the game systems for running, overland movement, sighting, swimming, and climbing. They told us if I was making things too complex, encumbrance was a particular concern here. They located contradictions in different parts of the text. The height and age of elves, for instance, tended to vary from section to section. They requested more detail about things like spellbooks, alignment, paladin powers, and thief abilities. They argued for a retaining material we had decided to cut, and some of it is going to come back as a result. They pointed out awkward wordings and repetitions, although fortunately that is the editor's task to fix, not mine. Am I always wrong? Are the playtesters always right? Not every time. More than once, more than twice even, the playtesters don't agree. Some like level limits on character races and some don't. Some want the limits higher, some want the limits lower, some don't want them at all. Some groups think encumbrance and casting time should be standard rules, others agree with me and see them as optional. There are those who want more complexity in combat with critical hits, hit locations, and specific damage. Others argue that combat is already too complex and should be made simpler. That's why I, the designer, have to go through each comment. Choices still have to be made between doing a certain thing one way and doing it another. Often, the arguments for changing what I've already written are good and strong. Sometimes it's just a matter of personal taste. These are the times when I have to make the final decision. And every so often in going through the cards, I find a little moral support and praise, usually when I'm feeling at my lowest ebb. I'll come across a card with, "Nice job," or "We like this," and that helps. It really does. So I hope that you can see in here, there's some criticisms that are laid upon second edition, and I guess in some instances maybe rightly so, certainly in relation to what I said last time about all the extra materials they were printing in mass in rapid succession for various different things, some of which were useful and some of which were just fluff and clutter. And again, that's my opinion. You can take that or leave that, depending on what you like. I like some of the inspiration in those complete books. And I don't use everything in them, or I don't use them as written, but I like some of that stuff. There are some other things that I like that they produced. So there's some criticism leveled in that direction. That's a bit fair, of course. But there's also some criticism that second edition was not well play tested. I think this kind of debunks that idea. 8 months worth of play testing, as it says. And they're still waiting here as of November of '88 to continue to get those reports in, continue to modify and go over things to get the final submission done before it gets sent to the printer and gets out to us back in that day. So I don't think that argument is quite fair or stands up very well in relation to second edition, according to what Zeb himself writes here. Could it have been play tested with thousands of players? Well, sure. Would that have taken probably years more? No doubt, to collect all that information. Is it as much playtesting as has gone on with newer editions today? Obviously not. The hobby has grown much larger. Communication is much easier than it was then. It's much quicker with text and email and chats and FaceTime and Facebook Messenger and all these other things that go rapidly disseminate this information and get it back to the creators and designers. So there is that as well. There are many more conventions today in places, although we're losing some, I believe. And COVID caused some of that, and the increase in, I'll just say the newest edition and other editions of other systems. I won't be as derogatory as I can sound sometimes towards those new systems, because if they're your thing and you enjoy playing that, the point is, are you enjoying playing D&D and having fun with your group? That's the point. It's just not my thing. So again, I hope you've liked this. I hope you give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. And if you know there are other articles in Dragons out there that Zeb has also talked about second edition, please put that in the comments. I haven't been able to find any more past this Dragon issue here. So I would be encouraged to have that information, that I might read them myself and then maybe share them with you as well. So put that in the comments if you do know what they are. If you do have any links of any kind to other conversations with Zeb about the development process throughout second edition, where he elaborates more like he does in these articles I've been reading, that I would appreciate putting that link in the comments as well. Thanks again for the thumbs up, the subs, and the shares. Thanks for all the comments I've had recently. I really, really appreciate that. Great discussion so far. Again, check the description in each one of my videos for ways to support the channel. And if any of you want to become part of the Patreon, please consider doing so. And as I get a few folks on there, then I can start putting some things on there, and we can chat back and forth as to some rewards at various different levels that I can provide for you for that, if that's something you're interested in. to again to support me and to get a microphone for some better equipment, stuff like that, to do videos with and those kinds of things. So thanks again, you guys. As Gary always says, prosper and good gaming. Take care. Later.